Ohio tax cuts and tax breaks prevail, and the lowering of penalties for pot possession. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Ann Fisher, host of All Sides with Ann Fisher on 89.7 NPR News. Julie Carr-Smythe, State House correspondent for the Associated Press. Joseph Maas of the Ohio Hispanic Coalition, and Michael Miller, former Franklin County prosecutor. 17 days and 10 hours late, Ohio got a new state budget for this next 2 years, and it happened this week. The House and Senate overcame their differences and settled on a tax cut for all of us, 4% across the board. They kept the tax break enjoyed by sole proprietors who make under $250,000 in business income. Well, most sole proprietors. We'll get to that in a moment. The budget includes more funding for programs for at-risk children and low-income families. It has more money to pay for environmental protections for Lake Erie. Governor DeWine signed it, making only a few changes.
The budget that I signed this morning is a budget that really invests in the future of the state of Ohio. It invests in our workers. It invests in our young people. It invests in our infrastructure. It invests in Lake Erie and clean water. So it's a visionary budget. It's a budget that I'm very, very proud of. It's a budget that really looks to the future for the state of Ohio.
And Fisher, it was billed as, it came down to Larry versus Larry. Larry Householder from the House, Larry Obhoff from the Senate, the two leaders there that was delayed it for 17 days. Who came out on top? Who won?
I think they kind of came out even. Just from watching, from relatively afar. They both can go back to their constituents, and all of their members can go back to their constituents and say, "Hey, we got a tax cut for everyone in Ohio." There are differences of opinion about whether or not that sole proprietor loophole or provision in it should extend to $250,000 or not. As far as income goes, but it is interesting, and I'll be interested to find out who is for and against the idea to nix lawyers and lobbyists from that.
We'll get to that in a sec, but Julie, the House wanted a 6.6% across the board tax cut. The Senate wanted 8%. We ended up with just 4%. What happened?
Well, I think that this is a sort of a broad negotiation that you can see that they're trying. I think we've talked on your show previously, they're all trying for what amounts to you and me as average taxpayers to small amounts of difference, really, in the course of a year, a few dollars, really. But I think that what happened was that they had to find ways to get Democrats on board and find ways to get the votes that they needed in the chamber. And
just moving money around and moving pieces around.
Right.
The small business tax break, Joe.
Yeah.
Was it hard to get that through, to eliminate that tax break for everybody?
Everybody.
Because the state really doesn't need the money right now. We're not in a financial crisis. If budgets were tight, you could say, look, this isn't really creating jobs. We need this money. We're going to take that tax break away from you.
And attorneys don't. Oh,
yes.
That's on the regular tax break.
Yeah. On the deduction, on the small business tax cut.
I have trouble understanding but again, I'm a Democrat, and I happen to think that government can do things with resources, and I think it's a good idea to accumulate resources in order to be able to fix things such as infrastructure. Maybe more about that later. But as far as the deduction is concerned, attorneys are not.
Yes. In the state budget, the last minute, they excluded attorneys and lobbyists from the small business tax break. So they not only get wiped out completely from where they can have $250,000 of income exempt. Householder wanted $100,000. They didn't even get that.
Right.
So what happened there?
Well, I think the optics, obviously, of having they said a very high percentage of state lawmakers fall into that category of sole proprietor lawyers, and it just was a bad look. But legally, I am curious about whether or not, and I'm sure there will be a legal challenge to that.
So why not just exempt lawmakers who are lawyers rather than all lawyers?
Well, I think that would have pleased a lot of people had they done it that way. But I think, lawyers and lobbyists are easy people to pick on. I suppose they could have also thrown in people convicted of sex crimes and so forth would be eliminated. But for some reason,
Not to compare the two.
I think it's a trade swap. I'm sure votes were exchanged all kind of on other things, not just for this, but for perhaps the energy bill and all kind of things.
The express reason, and it's actually one of the reasons that I went into the practice of law in the first place, and that is that it was one of the few businesses that I could go into without an investment beyond an education. So their logic is that we usually would not take that deduction and then reinvest it in the business by hiring more people. It has to do with employment, and that seems to be the motivation behind most of the tax cuts and deductions in the first place.
But that'll get challenged in the court if it hasn't been
Mike's going
already.
to challenge it.
Yeah, and to Joe's point about the, the investment in these other things and that the economy is doing well, I mean, that tax cut, I mean, to give 8%, even now, we talk about the economy doing well right now, and we have bounced out of the recession. But Mike DeWine was left with a lot of things to take care of, a lot of programs. We still have an infant mortality crisis. We still have these children's issues that, this budget invests in. And so, that looks better for them maybe now than a deep tax cut.
Yeah, Mike, there were a lot of increases in spending on social programs. Now, advocates for these programs say that Ohio is way behind in spending, so we're just getting back to even with the rest of the country. But there was a lot of investment that was welcomed by Democrats.
There was, and I think that was one of the important things that DeWine wanted, was this increase in things of that nature, which they did. But the budget itself, I mean, there's things that I don't even think about, as budget. I mean, in there about saying that you got to be 21 years old now to smoke the electronics or buy the electronic cigarettes and so forth, that we're moving the primary to St. Patrick's Day. I don't think of those things as budget things, but I guess it's all part of.
Well, I would say that
trading.
the who gets to buy cigarettes or anything like that is that affects the ultimate revenue. So that's going to affect revenues and that kind of a thing. I'm not saying that that's what most people think
that's
of.
how they
but
get it in.
That's how they
That's
get it
some-
in.
One bill, they don't
voting-
have to follow the single subject rule.
Right, exactly.
Because everything costs money, whether it's running elections or administering taxes. Democrats have to be. You didn't see a whole lot of complaining from Democrats about this budget. A little bit on the edges on the taxes and.
That's right. No,
Tax cuts.
just on the edges, Mike. I didn't see this as being fuel for a major argument on our part.
All right. Remember that deadline that First Energy gave the legislature? They had to pass a nuclear plant bailout bill, pass it by June 30th, or they would start the shutdown process of those plants, eventually laying off thousands of workers. Well, apparently it was more of a goal than a deadline. Lawmakers still have not passed the energy bill that subsidized the 2 nuclear plants and 2 coal plants. The latest version, passed by the Senate, would have ratepayers from around the state each pay a little more each month to fund a $150 million subsidy for the 2 nuke plants. Ratepayers, though, would actually see a reduction in their bills because the state would cut back renewable energy mandates and their associated charges. The plan is now in the hands of the House. It hoped to pass it this week, but it delayed the vote until August. So the deadline, apparently, we all knew it was kind of just a made-up deadline, but that's been extended. Will this be the final version that the House passes, do you think?
Well, it's a curious thing. We were just talking about, the budget negotiation, and it seemed that there was something related to this bill that was being talked about on that same day, and then it got over to the House, and they failed to have enough votes to get it through. So were Democrats holding out for particular other items that they want or not? I mean, Larry Householder has definitely, he built a coalition that included a few Democrats in order to get the speakership. But that was a huge surprise. I mean, there were ways that the last time he was speaker, he would pull all kinds of votes out of his pocket that you didn't expect. So
it was more than just a few lawmakers being on vacation.
They're saying it was 4 Republicans who were on vacation, 4 from his own caucus, but that doesn't make any sense that they would not be there for a vote on this bill that's obviously one of his pet bills.
plus, yeah.
Yeah. Is this a good deal if this version is the one that they have settled on?
I don't think it's a good deal. And as a matter of fact, when the entire topic just was broached and the elimination of support for renewables, I was extraordinarily puzzled. And I mean, even states that depend on coal are investing in renewables, and the abandonment of the part of the state of Ohio was puzzling, to say the least.
Because the coal plant bailout, Mike, is actually more than the nuclear plant bailout. It will cost ratepayers, I think, over $1, $1.50. The nuke plant is at less than $1. Of course, that'll get offset by other savings. But again, the subsidizing private industry, dying industries, coal and nuclear.
Well, also, I think one of the coal plants is, I try not to use the word plant, but is in Indiana.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very strange. But I think this is going to pass. I don't claim to understand the intricacies of how the legislature particularly works, but I think it's going to pass. And I think a lot of it was, so I'm told, took place with the budget thing itself. They got a vote here, a vote there, and you're going to do this way, which we're all used to those things happening.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a matter of time, and not very long until they'll pass it and the governor will sign it.
And the issue here for a lot of lawmakers isn't just, are we supporting old industry energy or old dirty energy? What it's really about is communities. I mean, a lot of these communities in coal country, in the case of Davis-Besse up on Lake Erie, I mean, these are communities that build up around these. Now, the renewable folks obviously made the argument, we've begun to build our own industries, and now we're going to lose jobs if, we default to old energy sources. So I think maybe they're trying to split that baby a little bit.
I mean, why not do both? I mean, they didn't want to have a rate increase. I know the politics of that, but it's really would have amounted to maybe $3 more a month for your average ratepayer. Now, the companies pay a lot more in an electric bill than the individual ratepayers do, but just do both.
For some reason in Ohio, Republicans, by and large, not all of them, but many of them, and some pretty big ones, oppose renewable energy. And they oppose any kind of public subsidization of nuclear energy, or of renewables. And it's not entirely clear why. It seems to be just
It's a cultural identity,
yeah, a
perhaps.
culture-
It's
could be,
hard
yeah.
to imagine because, in fact, industry is moving in that direction anyway.
Right.
No matter what the argument is or what on the political front happened, it seems to me if you travel abroad or if you travel to other states, you see the evidence of that.
If the industry, Mike, and the economy in general is moving closer and closer to renewables, more and more towards renewables, does that lessen the political power, which has been strong, of coal in this state and in oil and gas more recently?
I don't think so, at least not in the near term. In the long term, yes. But you still get those people that Julie was just talking about. That these are their jobs. They've been there forever and ever. And I think just look back at the election in 2016, as I remember it anyway. Hillary Clinton had some statements about the coal and so on and so forth, and just got blown out in all of those areas.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is just politics, fortunately or unfortunately, but short term, I don't think it'll have any effect.
Mike, I understand, I heard a report that the Museum of the Coal Industry in Kentucky has solar panels.
Wow. There you go.
Drop the mic.
Okay.
All right. Jeffrey Epstein's Central Ohio ties became more into focus this week. A friend and advisor to many of the rich and powerful, Epstein faces charges he trafficked and sexually abused dozens of underage girls in New York and Florida. Epstein was a financial advisor for L Brands founder Les Wexner. This week, the Columbus billionaire wrote a letter to his employees saying, quote, "I would never have guessed that a person I employed more than a decade ago could have caused so much pain to so many people. My heart goes out to each and every person who has been hurt. I severed all ties with Mr. Epstein nearly 12 years ago. I would not have continued to work with any individual capable of such egregious, sickening behavior as has been reported about him. As you can imagine," Wexner writes, "this past week I have searched my soul, reflected, and regretted that my path ever crossed his." Of course, Wexner is a big donor to Ohio State. He's given to us here at WOSU. Now OSU is investigating a gift Epstein's organization made to the university. It matched a gift from Wexner. In 2007, Epstein's group gave $2.5 million to help name the Wexner football complex. Epstein also gave $1,000 to the Wexner Center for the Arts in 1990. Mike Miller, you're a defense attorney. How do you defend guilt by association? Because that's what this Epstein case is all about at this point with these folks.
Well, it's very difficult to do that. I mean, I do not know Mr. Wexner, but I have faith that what he said is accurate. I can't imagine him or most sane people wanting to get mixed up with somebody like this. So far as the university goes, I mean, you're talking about 2.5 million in one gift, and I think 100,000 or something like that. 1,000 on the other one. I think this was done in 2007, if I remember right. And he was convicted in Florida of 2008, and it had a lot of notoriety because of his status and so forth and money. So the university, I would think, has known about this a long time. To come back now in 2019 and say we're going to have an investigation. What's the investigation? He gave the money, and there you are.
The university, from what I understand, the university, because Epstein gave the money as a part of his foundation, he was anonymous, but the foundation, CUOQ, I think is the name of it. So they didn't know specifically it was him who gave him the money. It was his foundation. So they have some deniability there if they didn't. But still, it was Wexner was the trustee. He was a matching gift. So
I think
at the time, people knew who was it from.
I think this is a good illustration, though, of how much times have changed, even since 2014 or 2012 or whenever that was. I mean, it's that much. That the sensibilities about it, the optics, again, of something like this is much different than it was even 15 years ago. You don't want to be associated with it.
Well, and there are some other issues with that, where Jeffrey Epstein was controlling the books of some of the Wexner foundations and giving grants to the former Israeli prime minister, for example, for things we don't really know what. And so what were those Wexner dollars going places that Les Wexner wasn't necessarily signing off on?
Yeah, having absolutely nothing to do with the crimes themselves, it appears that the relationship was quite intimate, and it involved a great deal of money, including the mansion that Epstein was living in New York, and which has been described as a gift from Les Wexner.
Well, the money is
money.
there. There's no doubt about it. I think that that Wexner's wife Abigail had a foundation, and 47 million was contributed to it, and it was the only contribution.
Right around the time that Epstein was charged.
Right around the time, and then you get back into the deal with, as Joe pointed out, the mansion in New York City that was, I think, split between Mr. Wexner and he at 7 million, maybe something like that a piece, and he sold his share 8 or 9 years later for 20 million. There's a lot of money involved.
Yeah, and probably the troubling piece for the Wexners is sort of this weird Victoria's Secret question, because Victoria's Secret is, obviously marketed as very, sexy lingerie or whatever, and here he is to young women, and I know that company has been a little bit hit by this, because they've been hit generally by Me Too, as maybe you need to rethink your branding a little
Even
bit.
before all this hit.
Right.
Anyway, the city of Columbus wants to drastically reduce penalties for possessing marijuana. City Council is considering dropping the penalty for having a small amount of pot to just a $10 fine. It's less than a parking ticket. If you have a little more, up to a half a pound, the fine would go up to $25. That's less than an OSU parking ticket. That's a fraction of the penalties called for under Ohio law. This comes as other cities around the state consider decriminalizing marijuana. Joe, first of all, there's a reason why they want to have such small penalties and not just say
No
it's not
penalty at
illegal
all.
anymore.
That's right, because that's already been tried in other places. I think even Newark, Ohio has tried that, of saying, well, it's illegal, but there are no penalties associated with it. Now, a couple of things have happened. One of them is that a judge, I think in Toledo, said that you can't have a prohibition without a penalty. But the other thing that happened, and I think that happened in the Newark case, is that then the prosecutor is having law enforcement charge people under the state statute.
Okay.
So the idea is to reduce it, hopefully not have it ruin the kids' lives. I say kids, but
Could be anybody.
could be anybody. And at the same time impose, have it to be some sort of a penalty.
Mike, should it be decriminalized?
Oh, I don't know, Mike. I don't really care. I think this, in my opinion, this is just all politics, and it's meaningless in my judgment. I mean, Joe and I have been doing this between us, I don't know,
100 years.
maybe 80 years between
About
us.
100
And I can't tell you when the last time I saw anybody in any court go to jail for even a day or two with marijuana. Now, if you got kilos
possessing,
of it, that's one thing.
Small amounts.
So this is just some political thing. They want to stand up, and I think it's meaningless. And like Joe said, you could just go charge under the state law. And the state law is only a 4th-degree misdemeanor. Most you can get is 30 days in jail and a fine of like $250, and no one ever gets that. So that doesn't mean anything. And the interesting thing, the way they've done it there, is up to 200 grams, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 201 under the state law is a felony. But I think it'll get them publicity.
Really
they can
good
stand up
weights
say
and
we did this
measures.
great
Some
thing.
pretty accurate scales. if they're gonna-
Yeah, and 100 grams is a lot, by the way. I mean, a 40-gram joint, it looks like a burrito. So
I won't ask how you know that, but that's all right.
I have a video of my phone. I'll show it to you.
What is this? Is it as big as a bread box? But you answered the
Yes.
question.
Is this all part of the baby steps towards making
Yes.
pot legal
It is.
Yes.
overall?
Yes.
It's all over the country, Mike.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that now they've, well, we're waiting to see if the governor will sign this hemp legalization bill, and we've got the medical, and yeah, I think it's.
And it isn't a party thing anymore. I think that the polling shows about equal for Democrats and Republicans and independents.
All right, of course, this weekend we are remembering what happened 50 years ago. Ohio's own Neil Armstrong led the mission to land and walk on the moon. The mission fulfilled a promise made by President Kennedy. It took the work of hundreds of thousands of people. It took $25 billion, but they made it. The mission brought the country and the world together. Some questioned whether or not it was worth it, but most just celebrated what stands as one of humankind's greatest achievements. Mike Miller, where were you?
I was with my wife and my first child, who was 9 months old at the time. And we went to a neighbor's house and celebrated together, and it was just awesome. It's hard to believe 50 years have gone by, which shows how old my oldest child is.
Yeah, I was a toddler, so I don't have any remembrance. Joe, where were you?
I was in college. I was about 20 years old, and I remember going to a friend's house with my girlfriend to watch. However, my memory is failing me. I thought it was at night, but I'm told by Ann Fisher that it was in the
I don't remember.
afternoon.
I'm pretty sure.
She
I
doesn't
don't-
remember.
I don't
She-
I do too. I was 12 years old, and I remember my dad yelling at us to get in here right now. You got to get in here, get in here, everybody. And we all had to sit down in front of the TV set and, watch it. So it was
That's
cool.
cool. I was too young to remember, but I did
went-
go to
that's
Wapakoneta
right.
this week to Neil Armstrong's hometown, which is, they're definitely celebrating. It's so much fun. I mean, they had Girl Scout troops out that had these little lanterns. They were all like gray balls, and they had them all lit all over the streets, and all the businesses had their, the things where you could put your face in and take your picture, and little themes. And then they had moon teenies at one of the restaurants, and that goes on all this weekend. So if people want to go out there.
Could we ever do something like that again? Let's say President Trump next week was to say, by the end of next decade, we're going to find a cure for Alzheimer's. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Would we do it? Could we do it?
I think that's one of the most striking things about the 50th anniversary is that it's not like, it doesn't feel like history. It still feels like, well, that was something, what's next?
Yeah.
As opposed to, wow, like we invented the TV and now we have cell phones. It just doesn't feel like that kind of advancement.
Mike, if the goal were something that would benefit from the dumping of a lot of money or the dumping of a lot of technology, I would say that it could be done, even under somebody like Donald Trump. But a goal such as eradicating cancer or eliminating Alzheimer's is unfortunately a hope rather than a goal.
Well, is it that as insurmountable as putting two guys on the moon?
Is it doable? Of course it's doable, and it will be done someday, but it's not something that the dumping of technology and money will get it accomplished. Now, fixing the infrastructure throughout the entire United States, high-speed trains and all of that, absolutely that could be done. Perhaps that would be our next moonshot.
I see when you talk about something like curing cancer, my feeling about something like cancer is that it's a moving target and it's mutating all the time.
That's why I picked
It's never
Alzheimer's.
going
It's
to
one
change.
disease.
And Alzheimer's, we're not exactly sure even what causes Alzheimer's. So, but the moon is, relatively speaking, finite. It is a place to go. You land there, you're there. It's not moving. It's not going farther away. All things being equal, and I think that in that sense, and then also they were willing to throw so much at it. Are we ever going to assemble or amass the will to do something like that again?
We're going to get to our off-the-record final parting shots. Mike Miller up first.
Well, talking about the moon, I just saw a thing this week, a lady who I think was a former astronaut saying because of the moon week and so forth that we're going to be on Mars in 20 years. And I really had a hard time thinking about that. Unfortunately, I won't be around then, but I hope they're right.
Well, imagine the people in 1949 said we're going to be on the moon. in
That's
20
right,
years.
that's right.
Joe.
Also about the moon, a celebration of what America used to be. You had a program that started by Eisenhower, energized by Kennedy, supported and advanced by Johnson, and then finally executed by Nixon. What if Donald Trump had been somewhere in the mix in there?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Julie.
We had a massive dump of national opioid data this week. I mean, really an incredible amount of information showing perhaps the clues to where this started and where these drugs went exactly and by whom. And so we're going to see a lot more reporting on that.
Incredible numbers there. Ann.
Something that didn't get done this past week, the Ohio General Assembly decided to nix a plan to provide workers' compensation for first responders for post-traumatic stress disorder. They'll do it if there's other injuries involved, but not for that alone. I think that's something that they have to look closely at. They've been debating it, and they've been, shooting for this for 8 years now, and they shot it down again.
All right. The Ohio State Fair begins this week, of course. That leads to the question, will Governor DeWine restore the tradition that was interrupted by former Governor John Kasich? Will Governor DeWine return to the fair and spend at least one night in the sheep barn, the dairy barn, the fishing hut? I don't know. My odds are that I think he will. I think he loves being governor, and this is part of the deal, and I bet he restores that tradition. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the discussion, Facebook, Twitter, and you can see each episode on demand at our website, wosu.org. For our crew, for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.